A very good afternoon to you all. My name is Mufara Chita, and I'm going to be a moderator for today. The title of the talk today is called All You Need to Know About Research Methodology Course in UTP. So I'll leave this time to Abu Bakr Sadiq Isa for the opening prayer.
Thank you very much. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Ya Allah, we offer everything to you during this session. We ask for your blessing and implore that this event be successful and effective. May all the participants retain all the valuable knowledge that is taught here and use it for actual application. We pray that you bless all the organizers, the speaker, the stakeholders, and all the committees in charge and assist them to fulfill their task diligently and responsibly. Amen. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the rules and regulations for the session. The Microsoft Team meeting will be open 10 minutes before the session starts. We'll advise you to kindly observe and follow by joining 10 minutes early to avoid difficulties when joining at the last minute. We highly appreciate your kind attention to this matter in order to ensure the smooth flow of the workshop. And once you are in the meeting space, your video and audio will be muted by the host. This will allow the speaker to have center stage while also minimizing distraction from the audio feedback. So your cooperation is highly appreciated on this. As the workshop includes a Q&A session, you may type your questions using the link and barcode that has been posted in the chat box of the Microsoft Team meeting, and the moderator will try her best to pick as many questions as possible. Kindly be straightforward and concise in your questions. Lengthy questions may take up more or be misunderstood by the moderator. The questions can only be raised by typing. All audio from participants will be switched off to avoid any issues and distractions. After 1 hour of the sessions, a break of 5 minutes will be given to allow the speaker and the audience to rest. And failure to abide by these rules and regulations, the host will remove the student from the session. So allow me now to introduce the speaker of the session. The speaker today will be Professor Dr. Nasir Shafiq. Professor Dr. Nasir Shafiq has about 30 years of experience in professional structure engineer, academician, researcher, and research administrator. He has published more than 100 research papers in referred journal and proceedings. So I'll leave this time to you, Professor Dr. Nasir Shafiq, to take on the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, student. And as the topic today is given to you, to me, is do you find research methodology course that whenever you registered as a postgraduate student by research, so this is one of the course, and maybe, and I am the inaugural lecturer of this research methodology course for last 15 years. And so towards the challenges and why this research methodology and the most hiccup, particularly getting your PhD or master's, or you are in writing up, so it will be helpful for them. And I try to change my lecture, which is not repeating the same research methodology course, right? So it is like with respect to the topic given to you. So the purpose of this presentation, so I will start with the purpose of research methodology course for research degree, why it is just like a course, or what is the outcome of this course, right? Once we designed in 2004 or 2005, since beginning I am part of that what are the main learning outcome. So my presentation will include first the background of the course, what was the main objective. It is just as a course, or it is helping you or guiding you in carrying on your journey, right? So then, yes, it is that. Then I will discuss basic of the research process, which from day one until your final thesis submission, right, and the whole journey. And then I will discuss a bit, right? Because as since beginning in UTP 2001 and 2005, when PG started coming into UTP and in civil department, right? So I'm in UTP since beginning, and if you can say my role as examiner or in RCS, RPD or final Viva within UTP. So I think I have countless, but roughly if I can estimate, so maybe in all process it has exceeded 100, right? Master's, PhD level for last 15 years, right? Since we have started. And my student graduation rate, again, I think I have to sit sometimes from 2007 until 9, but last time when I was counted roughly as a main as well as a co, it was exceeding 50 student. So that has given me an idea, it has given me some understanding, right? And I have learned the basic flaws or the basic weakness in our PG student, as well as every year now for last 7-8 years being external examiner within Malaysia, even outside Malaysia. So I am also having a comparison, so I can also say what are the common weaknesses into the research student, and I will highlight mostly onto them, right? So that is my presentation. So first, what is why this research methodology course is there? Why it is important, right? So basically, although MQA, which is Malaysian Quality Assessment Department, which accredite your degree, right? That your degree is recognized, but UTP has implemented much before that, right? Once we started PG, right, degrees in UTP in 2005. So research methodology is a compulsory requirement by the MQA for all research students to introduce them to contemporary, and the purpose for them not only in UTP, all universities in Malaysia, those are offering research degree or taught course degrees in MSc. So it is a compulsory module, and the reason for introducing is that the student must be familiar with the contemporary perspective in academic research, because as I used to tell you in research methodology, where research has various paradigm, right? And lot more research are being done by industry, right? So what are the basic requirement of the academic research, right? If you can recall, I have shown you the research journey, and which start from fundamental to the applied side and to the product development, right? So this is the very fundamental objective, and it mainly focusing on developing a range of skill involved in formulating a research proposal, including framing research, right? As I always used to say, throughout, either you are doing masters by research or you are doing PhD by research, the most difficult part is your proposal, right? If you will come up to the right proposal and you have gained the right understanding, so your rest of the journey will be easy, right? And somehow or other, sometimes if you will have some issues, maybe, right, don't consider the passing the proposal defense. The understanding of research is coming from the proposal. If you recall, those have attended my lecture, I always give my own example when I joined as research student for my PhD in Leeds University. So I'm not repeating, and as you know, how I have come up. This is the most important thing, right? Including framing research question, reviewing the literature, and choosing appropriate methodology for different types of studies, and the ways in which researchers from different research traditions, even within civil engineering, some of you are doing purely on simulation, some of you are doing purely experimental research, some of you are doing data collection, survey, questionnaire, and some of you are doing the mixed mode, right? So this is the most important thing, right? What is you should have to understand, and what are the basic requirement. So this is just what is the from UTP side and MQA side, what is the basic requirement, right? So the it is for creating a skill, range of skill, not a single skill, range of skill, right? And I will even explain where are the still shortcoming. So from there, with this course, that will help you, and these are the outcomes which whenever you are in the journey of your master's or PhD or afterwards, you are working as a lecturer, right? Because the research journey will not stop once you will finish PhD. Even more complicated journey will start when you will be supervising a student, right? It is also not very easy, like during my time in UK, US. So once you did your PhD, so first 10 years after completing your PhD, your training is there with senior professors or with professors you have in a training. Then after minimum 5 years to 10 years, you will seek training, right, to conduct research. Then somehow or others, after having 5 to 10 years of the training, post PhD training, then you can start supervising. So in that case, the learning outcome, which means through this course and throughout your journey, so these the red line are the main emphasis, right? What we are understanding. So what you are saying, is it a challenge? Yes, it is a challenging, but it is preparing you to tackle the challenges which will come ahead of you. So the first one, right, learning outcome, which is journal from MQA and from UTP side as well. So you should be able to identify comprehensive understanding on the principle in demonstrating academic research philosophy, right? So this is the first lecture is mine, and I have gone through very comprehensively on research philosophy, right? So that is very fundamental thing where I have shown you various even videos, right? What does it mean by philosophy? And research philosophy, if I can tell in a simple manner, to to have your correct mindset, right? Research is not very easy, right? It is by having correct mindset, it will become easy, right? So your mindset will be changing mindset, right? When you are picking your topic and searching for problem, it will be different. Your mindset, your thinking style will be different. So your philosophy will be different when you are working into the laboratory or collecting data. Your working philosophy will be different when you are analyzing your results and you are interpreting your result, discussing your result. So you need a different thinking, right? As I have, if you can recall, I have said there are 6 types of heads, right, of thinking, right? You have to be critic, your own critic. So this is the fundamental challenge for a research degree scholar, right? So somehow or other, having, right, this understanding, somehow or other, right, it is sometimes difficult, and complicated area, right? So this is the first thing, right? As I used to say in my class, my late supervisor used to say, right, there are two things. The passing rate of PhD in the world is almost 100%, right? And this passing rate will give you the title of doctor, right? But he used to say to become the real researcher. So from there, so this is not more than 5%. So all over the world, he is not talking from one geographical location, all over the world. So the guru used to say the PhD passing rate is 100, almost 100% because nobody failed. But to create researcher, so from that stock, not more than 5% people could become the real researchers. And the reason are that, right? So the 100% or 70-80% attributes of research, even passing the research degrees, are not yet induced in them, right? So this is the first: differentiate possible research resources and transform issues in a broader perspective, looking, right, where from the literature review. So my major emphasis will be how I will guiding you. This is the most important thing. And this is a major weakness, right? The literature review is a major weakness of my experience, right? Including my own student, right? The impact or the way how literature review will contribute. This is the heart of the research, key of the research, right? So as my evaluation or assessment of more than 100 over student, right, including UTP, outside UTP. So understanding of literature review is a very weak area, right? I will do this. And communicating research in own words to create new meaning, right? So because this is in any of your presentation, right? So always it is being asked, what is the novelty, right? So that whatever you are doing, so if you are communicating, you have this skill, and you can create new meaning from the research, and then you can easily convince to the audience. Develop and defend a good research proposal in a systematic way, right? So this is one of the great challenge for you. Apply appropriate research techniques and tool from different with approaches, right? I think I put wrong, with profound intellectual integrity and ethics, right? So these are the real quality, and these qualities, these attributes will carry on not as a research scholar, but when you will become the examiner or you will become the supervisor. So you need these kind of quality, right? So somehow or other you would have seen, right? So sometimes, as I said, many of you would have seen me, right, in your different event, and you would have found me different than the young lecturers, right? Because more you will gain experience, right? So we can see, right, our purpose is to help the student, right, to turn them to the researcher. And again, today's event is also to advise you. So as this is the whole research process, and the research model which I used to say, right? So basically the core, right? You are looking, right? The problem identification, right? So again, your title also come out from this problem identification, right? So what is the research problem? Problem identification. So research, this will give the research direction, right? So title will, so this is the core thing, right? The very first thing when you have to start your master's or PhD, as I have explained to you my own experience, right? So it came from here. What is the problem you are uh, identifying and you will be working on? And then once you will come up to the right problem, out of the literature you will you will scavenge the right problem, then you will come up to the right title, right? The title will reflect the problem. So the core thing, right, your title, whatever you start your PhD, is an indicative, right? It is not rigid. And even your title will continue until you will be going for your viva, or until you will be submitting your final draft. And what is the support of giving this? So the core is literature review. Your journey is start day 0 or day 1 is start with literature review, right? So literature review is not just a subject, right? So this is the most important thing, the most critical thing, or if I may call, it is the most hardest part of your journey. When you will come up, it will set the direction how you will move, right? From here until here, right? It will set your direction, your journey. And once you will come up, then you will be developing goal and objectives, right? So this is very core part, and that will be, right, coming the very first milestone, right, of your master's or PhD is your proposal. And it is driving through good literature review. And you will find my more emphasis will be on literature review. I will not cover the part what were covered in research methodology, but I will give more on advising, right? So you will come to write, then you can come up to develop right goal and objectives, right? And then from here you can, so this, and afterwards everything will be coming contributing to this thing. So this is the, this model is linking everything. And from here, this is the chronology of your journey, right? And your literature review will not be end at your, it is going, right? And continuously it is also following, monitoring your direction, and it will also advising your direction, because as it is not the straight path. So from there, you can go to gathering data, methodology, analyzing, your finding, discussion, implication, recommendation, conclusion, and all. So everything, right? So when you can say your problem identification is leading or creating this goal and objective, and to goal and objective, rest of the steps are serving to the uh, goal and objective, which means there is connectivity, right? Sometimes I have found the students say we have written 5 Q1 paper in PhD, but all 5 Q1 paper are in 5 different directions, right? So some of the papers are not serving here, and the overall 70% of your work is not serving the problem, right? What you have drafted from the literature review, right? So whenever you are doing PhD, so the most important thing is your PhD problem, your research problem, right? Your major concern to be your research problem, not your journal paper, right? Journal paper might be your supervisor problem, not your problem, right? And because you are involved, so you can support your supervisor in that manner. But your baby is your research problem, your PhD problem, your master's problem, and you have to keep, this is the to find you are not going out of context. All the time you should be within the context, right? Even somehow or other, every 6 months you are going to BAPC and so on. But the most important role over here is you and your supervisor, right? So your supervisor has to make sure, so you have to have the often meetings, formal or informal, right, sometimes, but keep often a meeting and try to make that you are not going out of the context, right? So as we say that this is just like a journey, year 4 to year 0 to year 4, right? 3.5 year to 4 years journey roughly. So we can say literature review, which will continue all the way, but from day one, right? So your proposal topic all will start later, right? You will start literature review. Yes, you will have an indicative topic in your mind, an area. For example, structural engineering. In structural engineering, for example, concrete site or structural behavior, right? So just a broader sense, right? Through your interest, you can start, because you have to start from somewhere. So that I should not say the topic, but your interest area. And you will dig out, right, in your interest area, what is there to know further, what is already known, and the purpose. So then I will go in more detail, right? So you will start your literature review, not it is a chapter in your proposal or in your final thesis. I always find this is problematic, right? Although I never fail a student in even final Viva as external or internal examiner or in RCS, right? Because as I say, our role is not to fail or criticize the student. I consider my role is that before going to the next stage, how could I guide you? And as I say, throughout my this journey, right, where I am evaluating, including my own student, literature review is, I found that the meaning of literature review is very weak, our student, right? So as over here, I can say your final topic or your topic which you will start to work will get birth through literature review. It might take 3 months, it might take 6 months, right? Right. So it is the most important thing, and I will even more precisely guide you, right? So my most of the slides are over there. Then after literature review, the next important thing, to select the problem of your research, right? And again, there are two things, research statement and problem of the research. Problem of the research is a broader thing, right? Like I can say, when I did my PhD, so my problem was the premature, right? The problem of research, like mostly bridge structure, reinforced concrete bridges, right? So most of the bridges are deteriorating or severely damaging before, much before their service life, right? And among them, right, corrosion is the dominating problem for reducing the structural capacity of many structure, right? So but my focus was mostly bridges, right? And why reinforced concrete, and then we, so the this was the problem of the research, right? So this problem of the research, this will be carrying many gaps, right? Many sub problems. and problem statement is what I'm carrying, right? So there are first another hardest part, what is the problem of research and what is your problem statement, right? So these are also two different things. I will also explain to them. So through this, you will first find the problem of the research in your area of interest, and then you will scavenge, because you cannot solve every problem of the research in your interest, but within 3 years to 4 years, what problem you will undertake to investigate, that will become your research problem statement, right? So that is the most hardest part, right? To portray, to come up to the right problem. And once you have brought the right problem, right, which you are giving, I will also show you what are the gaps or how you will come up from the literature review. Then you will develop your methodology, which will include your objectives or goal. And to achieve this objective, as I say here, right, develop goal and objective. So then to achieve this objective, your methodology will come, right? So the next, the development of methodology, meaning to say that what is your goal, what is your objective. It will decide whether your methodology, your working, your actions will be experimental based, it will be interview based, right? It will be computer simulation based, or it will be a mixed kind of research, right? So accordingly, because first you will make your main aim and your hypothetical solution you will make in your mind, then you will move further, right? So which is like 2 years, 2.5 years, right? And then from second year onwards, start of second year, you can start results analysis, discussion, thesis, and so on, right? So the most critical is your first year, right? If you will get in your first year, you have picked the correct direction. So to me, it is not the worrisome, right? Something it will come over here when you will be writing your thesis, discussing, right? So, but if you have understand all over here, you have understand the significance of literature review. So this part, thesis writing part, will be easy for you, right? So the first thing, right, you will start, right? The most important thing, you have to, whenever you are writing your proposal or the first milestone of your research, and as I'm calling it, is the toughest part, right, of your research. So the most important thing, how do I write a good proposal? It is tough to convince the examiner, right? So that you are doing your communication, right? So the common jargon, right? Now, for example, your seniors can tell you, so this is the most important thing, right? So here, my most of the discussion will be that you are not writing your uh, proposal for yourself. Second important thing, I always tell student, your 20 minutes, 15 minutes, right? Slide presentation. So your defense is not for your slide presentation, right? Yeah. So it is you, right? Your slides are immaterial, right? But your confidence, you are presenting you, right? You are presenting yourself, whether it is final viva, whether it is RCS, whether it is proposal defense, you are presenting yourself, your knowledge, your brain. Your slides are not your presentation. Don't waste much of your time onto the slides, right? take, I will be happy if within 10 slides you will presenting whole proposal, but right, you have explained, right, like an expert to me. I will be more than happy, right, to debate, right. So first of all, you are presenting your idea, so you need to persuade and convince evaluator. And what is the most important thing which you have to keep in your mind, that the project is worth doing. And again, uh, how you can make it worth doing, so it will show that you have done the right and correct literature review to identify the problem, and that you are capable of carrying it out. So the two things you have to show, right? For example, nowadays, uh, as for last 3 4 years, uh, I I'm looking, people are talking, because you are all from civil engineering, BIM, and 100% our student or many people, they misunderstood BIM, building information modeling, right? They misunderstood, right? And they are just try to show that I have added the word BIM so I can impress, right? So the one, if somebody is evaluating you and he has a good understanding of BIM, right? Just as an example, I'm telling you, right? And so he can pick your weaknesses, right? So uh, you will portray that you are not capable to carry out this problem, right? Teaching you BIM, but whatever area. So these two things, right? So you should have to have a complete command of the keywords of your research, keywords of your problem. Then you can convince your audience at every level, right? And how do you do this, right? So help your evaluators to understand the motivation for your idea, right? And then you have come up, right? Once you are reading, right, literature and several question, right? Everybody, right? You read. Even I read whatever I write, my own writing. Whenever I read, still many question will come in my mind, right? So those are the research question, right? So that you have critically read. It doesn't matter you have read 100 papers, you read 10 most relevant paper in the area of your interest, and you have critically, right, analyze your paper, and you have come up. I will show you that you have to found, just I can say, whenever you are reading paper, so the three things, three gaps or three perspective, you have to read the paper. Conceptual weakness of the paper, right, in the concept, right? I will give you the several example of concept. For example, people are also looking, yes, based on the limitations. So whatever we are doing, but there are also conceptual flaws, right? Uh, the second is are the empirical, right? The empirical gaps or empirical weakness in the paper, right? Empirical, the relationship. For example, F is equal to MA, right? So 100 over years old. This is an empirical relationship. So that empirical relationship was, let's say, formed based on that knowledge, and after 100 years things have gone. So similarly, there are also some empirical relationships existing in the area of your research, right, or your interest. So you are reading the papers and you can find what are the conceptual error or weakness in that. having these errors and weakness are not wrong, right? It does not mean they are wrong. Just now you can see vaccine 80%, 90% successful, right? So this we are looking what this 10% or 20%. So there are some gaps, right, in this COVID vaccine. So you have to look, right? So then somebody can, hello, hello, it is in my, it is from my side or somebody?
Sorry,
So,
doctor, it's from somebody. You can go on.
okay. So as I'm telling, conceptual gap, empirical gap, or methodological gap, right? Methodological, the devices or equipment or methods, right? So if the new methods, new devices like with high magnification, high precisions are coming, so your measurement accuracy like lab work is being changing, right? So these are the three areas, right? The gaps which we are telling what are the gap analysis. So whenever you are reading the paper, so you read the paper like you are a critic, right? Don't read like you are a student. You read like you are an expert. You put yourself as supervisor and be critic. Three main area, right? Either what is the conceptual gaps you try to find, right? So like a critic, what are the empirical gap? What are the methodological gaps or weaknesses? And list down, right? And when you will be listing down, so there will come the research question, right? So that will make, if you have done this and you can give the summary of 10 papers to your examiner, I found most bias gaps are the conceptual gaps in this area, and why all these 10 papers are talking, and which is because conceptual gap you are relating with the fundamentals of physics, chemistry, fundamental of mathematics, fundamental of statistics, right? So you are looking with the theoretical proven theories and all, and you will find the fundament this conceptual weaknesses. So then the question will come, and then you can convince to your evaluator, right? So that will bring the originality, creativity, and innovation, right? Because you can give, so you are not even identifying, right? But you have critique. It can be your mental work, right? So you need a strong theory, you need a strong fundamentals, right? If whether engineering, what is engineering? Engineering is the application of physics, chemistry, mathematics, statistics, right? So that is engineering. We are giving the applied shape, right? So that is the most important thing you can do. You can make your project. So your presentation, even at every stage, to be like this, right? Help your evaluator appreciate the merits of your approach, right? And based on that, when you are coming, right, you have to make. So the most important thing, background of the study, right? So that will you, this will make the story, right? That will make the story here. As I was telling, research problem will be coming into the background, right? The summary of research problem, and problem statement will come, right? You are telling the pains in your area, background, right? When it is started and what are this, right? I can give the example of the just now from my side, right? In specific, right? So as I said, the bridges for last 50 years or 100 years, reinforced concrete bridges are becoming popular. Like United States, there are more than 1 million bridges, right, which are reinforced concrete. So the timing 1950s to 1900 to 1960s, 70s, most of the bridges were building up, and 1970s to 1980s, this was the time when most of the bridges were suffering, right, from distresses, and most of these bridges were suffering from loss of capacity. Either they were collapsing, or they were partially collapsed, just as a storyline. And then among there were various reasons, material properties, this design error, but the most dominant errors in this bridge is the corrosion of reinforced steel, right? So that is, and because of that, some of the uh, some of the testing have been developed by ASTM, for example, ASTM 256. Some of you might have done chloride migration test, because what are the causes of corrosion and what is the role of concrete. So within 1.5 page to 2 page, right? But the test is being used, but there are some conceptual error. Later on, I will tell you what are the concepts. So this is your storytelling, right? So you will make the whole story, right? So from evolution, and not very lengthy, right? Within one, because your chapter 1 is the summary of whole thesis, right? It should, to me, it should not be more than 5-6 pages long, right? Don't write stories. Writing lengthy story, literature review is there. Writing lengthy story, results and discussion. These are the 2 chapters where you can fill the pages, right? So because the one of the weakness is that the section 1.1 of your chapter 1 is always wrong, right? So majority student fail to make right storyline where they will bring the problem of research. Then research problem come, right? So as we say, background of a story, then from there you will drive the research statement, right? So as I say, so many bridge or the reinforced concrete deterioration is the main problem. Corrosion is the, if you will go specifically to corrosion, then within the corrosion, the problem statement, right, is the corrosion rate of chloride migration in concrete. So the measurement. So there is conceptual error. So just since you are all civil engineering, so what I tell you, concept, it is the accelerated method where the device is being done. ASTM has used still 256. So at one side is sodium chloride solution, other side is sodium hydroxide, and at 60 volt, right? So the chloride ion or the sodium chloride solution tend to transfer from sodium chloride solution to sodium hydroxide. And the conceptual error was that there were two, methodological error and conceptual error, right? When so conceptual error is that from there we say the measurement of durability of the bridge where to control the corrosion problem is the chloride migration. But at 60 volt chloride migration 6 hours, so they say this volt. So now you have to go to electrochemistry. There is not only chloride within concrete, other negative ions. So that will cost. Then you will go to the Joule law, Coulomb's law, and you will apply the concept. So they say, I mean, the critics, which through literature I also found, right? So because although the test is recognized by ASTM, ASHTO and all, but it is not 100% because of the Joule effects, application of Joule law, this 60 volt, right? So some other ions are also mobilizing. So what we are saying, the chloride permeability index from 6 hour at 60 volt, so it is not 100% correct, right? So that is conceptual error. Methodological error was there. So what should be the device or methodology that what methodology to be devised, then we can overcome these Joule effects. So we can go like 30 volts or 12 volts, right? And how this methodology that instead of 6 hours, 24 hours, how we can measure. So that will become my problem statement, right? So again, it will be one paragraph, right? So background, I have given the research problem evolution, right? This whole background, 1.5 page to maximum, if you can go 2 pages, right? And one paragraph, maybe maximum 100 words, you will come to your problem statement. And in your problem statement, either you can give separate hypothesis or you can give the within this 2 line, right? So this problem can be resolved to design the methodology or to design the system where only chloride ion can be stimulated or mobilized, that will be at lower voltage, right? So you must have to have the understanding what other ions can be mobilized. And because of, so literature review, when thinking about a literature review, is we need to think about what it is for what, right? The most important thing. So which is your area of interest? So for example, you are looking for let's say project management, because I will not give all example. So project management, for example, in post COVID world, right? The uh, the activities, right? Or the how projects, construction projects would be managed, right? In the post COVID world where new challenges have been arrived, right? So this will be, so your focus will be, so you will be looking, right? What are the post COVID challenges are coming, right? Because you will be relating, maybe you will be talking more from the HSE point of view of the construction sites, right? And the infections and how it could be managed, right? So what infection? So you are literate, what are the technologies, what are the methodologies, right? And what are the protocol, right? Because your construction efficiency and your hygiene at the construction site should not be compromised, or the future pandemic, right? So the economic activities should not be stopped, same as construction project. So you are doing for this is your objective, that in the event of any pandemic, construction project should not stop, right? So you, how you will make sure? So you have to do research, because there will be a lot of question will come, right? If a person is infected and symptoms are not coming, how we can make sure that it should not spread, this that. So your research will focus to that. Same thing in other discipline, right? Let's say wastewater or environmental side, right? Like environmental side, as I can say, the future buildings, office building, public gathering building will be working as normal if any pandemic will come. So like I was telling an example from environmental side, that the future offices will be self-sanitized, as I was reading, right? So one of the guru in the research say the future office building or public gathering building will be like the giant N95 mask, right? So which means the most critical thing, if 200 people are sitting in the office, so there is a need for the personal ventilation monitoring, right? So I'm sitting through my breathing. So whether on my desk, so some sensor or something would be there. So now the game of literature review, as in this slide. So literature review is a critical analysis of the existing research in your field of interest, right? What I'm saying, the sanitization of the future of it highlight both the strength and weaknesses of existing research, right? Both, and you are critically looking what are the strength and what is the weaknesses, right? So that allow you to gain the critical understanding of your field of interest, whether it is matured field or there are much criticism. It will give you opportunity to think about what has been done in your field, right? So that is not of your interest. Opportunity to think about the similarities, right? So several authors, several people are doing similarity pattern trends. So within these similarities, so again, as I told you, three things you will be looking. Either there are some conceptual dissimilarity, methodological dissimilarities, or everything is correct. What are the you have to find this, right? So by identifying strength and weakness, you will be able to think about what has not need to be done in your field, right? And the gap in the literature is your justification, and from there where you can give the new meaning, right, of the issues, that will be your gap, right? So that is the way of your literature review. And in journal, as I used to tell you, very unfortunately, 99% of our students, they consider literature review is a chapter of your thesis. It is not, it is much more than a chapter of your thesis, right? So literature review is a process as well as outcome of your thesis, right? It is the most important thing, right? So as I say, both, it is a process which is making, right, which critically, right, you are saying I, so just I'm going very fast, but your particular problem anytime you can discuss to me, right? So literature review as an outcome appears in the final draft of your thesis. Were the weaknesses, and those weaknesses being criticized by many. And for this weakness, just now as I was telling, that this ASTM T256 is not 100%, right, true test for the chloride permeability. And from there, this result is an outcome, so it has given some answer, yes, this is some change in concept which you are presenting. So this is this is the outcome. And as a process, critical engagement, you are looking, thinking, reading and writing with relevant research on your topic. It is crucial and formative stage of your, so the process which you are starting from before the topic selection, making problem statement, right? So it is two things. Literature review is not only a gap identification, so don't think it is a chapter. So critical thinking as a student, so I will tell, as a masters and PhD student, what are expectation. So in critical thinking, you can demonstrate that you understand how knowledge is created, right? So your understanding should be better than undergraduate, but at PhD level, right? So you can follow, you can repeat something, but you know the process of creating knowledge, right? But at PhD level, you can demonstrate that you can create knowledge or original, you can create new original knowledge, right? So at MSc level, you are repeating something, right? Novelty is there, but uh, changing or the parameters, but not your, right? Same thing somebody has done into this stages, so you are adding 3 more parameter, but you are creating new original knowledge. Like as I say, I have developed a new system, right, to overcome the Joule's effects, right? Or I have come up to the uh, developing network model, right? So in which I did not exploit the parameter. So whenever you are doing critical thinking, so your critical thinking from literature review as PhD level, you are expected that you can create some new knowledge, right? So this is the thing. So we need, right? The critical thinking can mean in terms of the literature review, understanding research on its own term, testing its viability, as I said, understanding research in relation to other argument, and critiquing research in relation to what you want to do, right? You critic, which is what is your mental picture, and in this you are just like solicitor, right? Like you are making argument, right? And you are making argument, and you are trying to find the question, answer of these argument, right? When you are reading the paper, this is the way, right? So starting to think about your own literature review when you have come up, right? Who are the key player in my field? So it is again, you have to find out, right, the area which you are selecting, so which are the key, right? And this could be anything from academic, medics, governing bodies, school of thought, etc. So sources, what are the main ideas, debates in my field, right? What people are talking now, what debating, criticizing, how have these ideas changed over time? So although last 5 years literature should are needed, but you have to go back. So I could say 50 to 60% your literature to be last 5 years, but last 40% should go way back until 50 years, right? You have to get the tail, right? The evolution, the idea, right? First idea and how it is changed, right? It is also important, right? What are some of the problem with these ideas? The methodology, as I say, what are you going to do differently now? Because when you are engaged critically, you can give. So there are key players and sources. First stage at the literature review is to identify the key people, as I to collate the relevant sources from there. I think in my research methodology course, I have given you first 3 paper, and first start reading from the title and so on. Then ask yourself what research and theory is there on my topic, right? And you can rank which are 80% relevant, which are 10%. So you can rank the paper, what are the key sources, who are the main theories uh, and researchers, theorists or researchers in this area, how has the topic problem been investigated over time, right? Because as I say, you are trying to find the conceptual weakness, empirical weakness, and the methodological weakness. So you have to go to history as well, right? So where to start? It is the critical issue. You don't need to read everything, you can't, right? Just so you don't need to read every text, and you don't need to read every word, right? So you should have to have a good skill that you can find which of the papers, right? You can begin with, as I have explained to you my experience. It started with the research paper title, year of publication and journal, then abstract, right? And from there, then I have selected for example, 10-20 papers where I went detail, which were 80 to 90% came through that. So main idea, once you have the relevant sources, you can begin to think about what the key ideas, debates, methodologies are in. So, and you can also think about how these ideas have changed over time, these two things, and ask yourself, so you, how has the topic or problem been? So this I have explained as the time is going. Are there any trends and pattern across the literature? What methodological assumptions and approaches have been used? And what are the agreement and disagreement between theorists on my? Because as I say, you everything you are putting fundamental theory and experiment and research, right? So which is concept. So whether it is talking against the theory or in line with the theory, right? And organizing your material, identifying a debate, right? So two paper, for example, scholar X, scholar Y, right? So that you are mutually comparing, right? Two paper or more than two paper among the author disagrees. What are the disagreement about these two people or more than two agrees? So there are different school of thoughts, right? Or same school of thought build on the conclusion of, right, what they are saying, what conclusion X is making, what Y is making, confirm the finding of, has reservation about, right? So this reservation of these, right, will become leading you to find the gap. So this is the way of reading. And in journal, one of the weakness is that your literature review, whenever you are writing, you are mostly all of you are author oriented, right? You are taking single author, right, and you tabulate. It should be concept oriented or context oriented. I just give you the example. Shafiq 2018 talk about this thing. He discussed this, right? And let's say another Bashar 2015 has talked this thing. It is wrong way. It is context oriented. Context oriented, as you can say, in last 5 years, many researchers have talked about the limitations of the T256 test for the chloride migration, right? So some researchers, they have criticized that conducting the test at 60 volt can cause this problem, and in bracket 4-5 very prominent researcher. Then some other researchers say it can be resolved by reducing the volt, this thing. So again, few researchers in that. So it should be context oriented, not the author oriented, right? Which you are writing 20 paragraph, each paragraph dedicated to one author, right? And there is a different thing. It should be context oriented. You take context one, right? So the main issue, right? So you start with this, and what are the controversies? Agrees and agrees, right? So you can say Mr. X agree on this, Mr. Y say no, this is this issue, right? So taking the main context, right? So this is the most important thing. And I should say almost 100% student are author oriented, right? Which is wrong. So so what are the particularity, what are the strength and weaknesses of the debates, right? So they will this will allow you to identify a gap in the literature, right? So the identify a gap, what are the strength and weaknesses of these debates. The paper have referring few paper, and he is discussing the weakness and gap, right? So this is your critical finding. And right, you are taking, somebody is claiming something, but you have seen, you could not find the evidence. So again, evidence is all limited, right? He is talking about this range, but beyond that, he did not talk. What will you add to the topic? What will you do differently, right? So that will guide inconclusive limitations, right? Disagreement, weaknesses, right? So from there, you can see your own strength and you can find, right? About organizing the structure of your literature review, your story will help with this. How will you organize the information? So from the beginning, I always say whether one paragraph, but you can start with the in concrete, for example, the up to now. So again, in your area, so at least one paragraph, even 2 lines, right? You start with the right. So first generation research of your topic and until today. So the chronology is important. Will is coming from 1950 until 2020 or 1970 until 2020, right? Even to 1970 you are giving, but you are making, and it will be thematically, right? So the initial theme of this reshaping and how many times the themes have been reshaped, right? Then by trained approaches, techniques, topic, the main problem as the problem of research, right? The family of research problem tree. And so there were 10 problem statements, right? And each problem statement or which is most relevant to you, the trends, updates, and controversies. Controversies are important and probably combination of these. Right? In that way, you can get, right? Writing is last thing. Right? So for that, mind mapping is most important. Every day you are reading, so you can jot down the ideas, right? Don't get. So for example, you search first 10 paper, which and dissimilarities on that, right? So with this 10 paper, so what the last slide, you jot down ideas, move them around, put this, so you can play around, right? You can say it is one-to-one correspondence or not, create link about that, put text on notes, right, for each what it is. So big paper A4 or A3 size paper, you can do this. So use the computer like any drawing tool, diagram, can write down the story, right? The background of your the summary and the detailed story in your literature is the way, right? You can make your storyline, right? So and each paper, each paragraph of your literature review will be connected within this chapter and will be connected with all other chapters of the. In many cases, your literature review is the copy of the theories, right? Which is textbook. It is not textbook. It is your critical review, right? It is context oriented, right? You are writing this test, you are writing like the BIM when BIM find, right? But in the application of BIM, in the testing, right, the chronology of the problem, which is missing in your literature review. I sit in RPD, RCS. When I sit in RPD, sometimes I feel frustrated, but I never fail. I give, because I don't want to discourage a student, but I give my guideline. I sit in RCS, I also give help student, right? But in final viva, even I try to defend, but if it is very, very weak, I could not convince external examiner, then I cannot do anything, right? Uh, but I tried many times. The student was supposed to get 4, but through my sometimes I also overcome to the external examiner, and Alhamdulillah, in 2-3 cases I remember I tried. A student should not get 4, right? I hate reviva, re-RCS, all those things, right? This which I have explained, 3 categories of gaps or contribution in your research you can do, right? So gap, and when you are solving, you either you can do the conceptual contribution in the research. When you find the conceptual gap, you can do the empirical contribution, right? or you can do methodological, or the combination of that, right? So as I told you, through literature review, right, you in the background you can convince the examiner through that. This is the most conceptual flaw in the available literature. For last 50 years, this is the flaw which everybody is talking. This is the main debate going on about the concept. And from this, one of the sub-concept I have undertaken in my research. Nobody will ask you. And you will support this with the logic, right? Justification. If it is material science, it is like experimental based, so there will be some physics behind that, there will be some chemistry behind that, there will be some statistics behind that, right? So this is the most important. And after this literature review, right, so that will make, right, your jot down and all mind background of your study, right, and that is the first thing which you can write down, and that will carry on, right, the storyline, which is section 1.1 of your uh, proposal all the way to your final presentation, right? And again, another time, you have to be clear problem of research and research statement, right? So background of study, right? So background of study, introduction, research problem is the hardest part to write, right? It is not very easy, right? You have to give, right? Even it does not need any citation, right? Because it is the reflection, or it is the summary of your literature review, right? Problem to this and the overall problem, right? Why problem could not solve 100. Introduction of the research, right? The background of study is the introduction of research problem. It started from 20 years ago, but these are the but on the way some secondary problem arises, right? And this is the conceptual problem solved, but methodological problem arises. So you will introduce your problem of the research statement is the specific one of the specific problem that you will be choosing for your research. So as we say, an executive summary that gives the reader an enticing glimpse, right? So section 1.1 is the executive summary of your literature review of the overall research theme and explaining, discussing what has been done, right? What has been known, understood, and what need to be done, right? Why the study is so important, or why is it worth a PhD study, right? So that is the executive summary, right? Not the abstract of your thesis. It is executive summary of your literature review, your critical thinking, right? So the process, right, of outcome. So in abstract, outcome will also come. So must sell the study, grab the reader's attention by stimulating a topic, right? As I'm telling, right, my own topic, that the keyword that although many other things I have done, the keyword was that the corrosion is one, because 3 trillion ton, $3 trillion have been invested in the state of Florida for retrofitting of the bridge. And the retrofitting bills are increasing, and one of the dominant cause of the problem is the corrosion of reinforced concrete, which is and there is a need to design concrete which can delay the corrosion, but T256, right, test is there, and this T256 test is not 100% portraying the mobilization capacity of chloride. So because at higher So other ions can also be mobilized. So this is telling, oh yeah, T256 ASTM recognized body. So still criticism is there. Or now, as most of you are using fly ash, right? So 2018 paper. Last year I wrote published one paper, construction and building, and I got, because now fly ash is also under criticism, conceptual, right? Because you will find same, right, composition of fly ash, but different results are coming, right? So the new area of conceptual, right, research, or the conceptual weakness is the use of fly ash, right? So I convince the even the in construction and building material, I even send the BASF report. This is the main problem, right? The humidity, this, because fly ash is not being produced as a primary material. It is the byproduct, right? So you can sell, right? Your goal is to infect the mind of your reader with your idea, right? So this is the most, in fact, the mind of your reader, your examiner. Yes, they will be convinced, yes, because somehow or other they would also be reading, right? If I'm your examiner, it is my habit, still you will look at my computer every month, if not every month, every year, more than 100 papers I
First, I
download,
download.
right?
Right?
Why it is echoing?
Sorry,
How
sorry, Professor. Sorry.
sometimes my sound was echoing or not? It's okay?
It's okay. Actually,
Okay, no problem. So as I say, how to start, this is the most important thing. And I think this is the area which is also missing in the research methodology course. Start, then explain the practical and or academic importance of the topic. Because this background, if research grant, you will portray the practical thing, and for PhD, the academic importance. Point out to the importance of the topic for practitioner, for example, referring to specific management question problem, or by quoting appropriate industry statistic to illustrate its importance, or refer to lack of previous academic research on the topic by highlighting important gaps, right? So within 1.5 to 2 page, right? Inconsistencies and controversies. So you remember in your school time, you in English subject, you were asked précis writing. So this is the précis writing of your literature review, right? No 10 pages. Then your problem statement will come, right? So in background, you have introduced the problem of your research, right? So in your area, even in your area, every problem is not your problem. Now, in next 3 years, which of the problem you are taking this? So as I say, often people confuse with background of the study or research problem with problem statement. It is not problem statement. The keyword is statement. It is not problem. Right? The keyword is problem. Therefore, problem statement should be stated either in the form of a concise problem statement or in the form of a core research question, right? So one of the key, because of the T256 test is not measuring the correct 100% correct permeability of chloride ion. So there is a need to correct the methodology, right? So as I say, within 100 words or 50 words, you can write down, right? Not a lengthy discussion of another 3 or 5 pages, though normally accepted by, right, as in journal, right? Uh, Many examiner, I always hate this, right? 2, 3 pages, right? I always ask, right? I need only 5 lines, 10 line. Even first draft of my own student, when they got right, either before going to RCS or RPD, right? Now I'm more busy. Last time when I was not that busy, so my student were getting 5 times, minimum 5 times they were getting thesis draft back from me. And most important thing, I asked them to rewrite sometimes 5 times problem statement, right? Last time when you will go back 2010, 2012 or during that time. But now uh, 8 years being professors and so many commitment, I also feel, I also regret I could not give much time to my own student, which I want to give and what is their right. So well presented research convince you or convince the audience the problem is interesting, right? The problem is hard, right? Again, not everybody has done novelty. Other smart people have tried it. Obvious approaches do not work. Problem persists, right? So some theoretical thing, as I said many times last 2 years, I always feel it give me my blood pressure when high, when people are using just the traditional approach of questionnaire and they are using the word BIM, which is not there, right? So this is the important thing. The author have solved the problem, technical detail, evaluation such as proof or experiment, right? So it is most important thing to convince the examiner. So then research question, right? So some guidelines. So I'm not going to the details of that, and I think time is also approaching. So just this, so methodology and all, right? I cannot discuss over here results and discussion later on. If PGSC would like to arrange, I can give advice. But this is the core, right? The hardest part which I have discussed or I'm discussing based on the potential factors identified from previous studies which are deemed important in the specific context of your study, right? Again, because everybody context is different, right? Everybody looking from different perspective, so which some other person have missed that perspective, right? So also provide specific research question example. So these questions, when you are critically reading what is the relationship between B and A among this, right? The parameters. Now the authors, now as I say, context based, right? So the parameter B and A, right? So this, what is the relationship between C and A, right? We are talking about parameter among 10 parameters, or which are the independent variable, which are the dependent variable, right? Which among different variable. So that you are trying to find the question, right? So 1 to 1, B to A are good, but C to A, it is not good, right? What is the relationship between D to A and so on, right? What is the factor that most influence A among all, comparing with B, C, D, right? What is the impact of A on Y, right? So research question help formulate research objective, right? So again, it will research. So many times I have seen research question come after the research objectives, right? So research question will make the objective, and then you will come the research objective, which is phrased in the form to determine, investigate, because research objectives are trying to find the answer of the research question, right? And research question are specific to your problem statement, right? Not the overall research problem. To evaluate, to compare, should logically flow from the problem statement or core research question. So some of the authors say to them, having stated clearly RO is research question is already sufficient without research objective, right? But for PhD, it is determine the relationship between B and A, right? So the question you are asking, and here you are determining, and when you are determining, later on you will find the limitation of this relationship, right? So these are the objective. And the most important thing, your planning is also most important thing, even at every stage. Literature review, finding. So there are these four quadrant: urgent, not urgent, important, not important. So the red one, urgent and important. So in that you have to plan your time. Urgent and important, do it right away. So whenever you are writing, so most urgent, most relevant, most important paper, so from there the critical review you immediately write down, right? Otherwise, because some fantasy came in your mind, immediately, right? So the second, not for your research, so do it soon, don't drag it, right? So the third one, urgent but not important, delegate, you can. Not urgent and not important, avoid or ignore. Don't do any nitty gritty things. So that is I have tried to bring the core, right? The idea of the research and review, which I found the most weakest part of our student and the problem statement. So I have for question and answer. So with that, thank you very much, and I'm passing back to the MC.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you for such an informative session.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much, Doctor. So now we'll open our floor to Q&A. As mentioned previously, you can post your questions through the website Mentimeter that we've provided in the chat box. So, Professor, for our first question, it says that, Prof, how long does a master student take to write the literature review?
I cannot hear. Can you write down? I cannot hear.
Can you hear now? Can you hear me now, Professor?
Now, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So for the first question, it says that how long does a master student take to write the literature review since he has limited time?
Yes. Okay.
Do you need me to repeat?
As I said, there. Yeah. Sometimes gone masters
Right.
or PhD. As I said, there are two purpose of literature review. One is a process. One as outcome review. Let's say first 3 months as a process for finding the problem, for finding the background of your research problem of first 3 months will be, and then the second phase, which is for as an outcome. So whenever you are doing your discussion, right, and your outcome, so that will go around all the way until submission of your thesis, because on time to time basis, right, when you are writing something, your discussion, or when you observe something in your something weird, sometime you have tested 3 times, so again you can also refer back literature. So for outcome, it is continuous and time to time basis. Making as a process, making your just rational of minimum 3 months is good, and for PhD minimum 6 months to me.
For our next question, it says that regards to where to start, can you give us exactly where we should focus on more, especially on the literature review or the methodology?
The main focus is your literature review, and if you will get the right review, you got the right problem, you got the right objective, so the methodology will be focusing, and again you will refer the literature review. So the major focus is literature review, right? So literature review will also give, right, methodology is your action, right, but literature review is basically your Bible, right? It is giving. So the method. So this is my say. The main emphasis is literature review. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Other question?
Yes. So our next question is that on average, how many papers should a student review for the literature review? When to know it's enough?
Okay.
How many papers?
Yeah. Okay. If I will give you my own experience, my time, or right, so your supervisor will not ask you to write the right. But in journal, in paper writing is your supervisor requirement, not your major requirement. But because now at this part of the world, right? So I should within 3 years, don't, if 2 to 3 more than enough for a PhD, and 1 to 2 paper for masters, it is more than enough, right? Because your PhD, your 10 paper, your PhD, the process model, your PhD is your critical. Sometimes I will that sometime I said I feel jealous when I look the PhD or master's research. So my time, I have to convince the examiner my background is correct. So all those things, right? So in that, so you have the time for writing paper, right? But like in US model, mostly, right, when data is coming, they have to write paper, and they use the student together with them. So, but in journal, this is my say. So, paper is not your main requirement. Thesis is your main requirement. But don't tell your supervisor that I ask you not to write paper. So, other question, please.
Yes, yes, Professor. The next question is how to identify our research has its own novelty or not. Is simply altering a few parameters in research sufficient to be labeled as something novel? I'll repeat the question again. How to identify our research has its own novelty or not? Is simply altering a few parameters in the research sufficient to be labeled as a novel?
Okay. So, as I say, you have to portray in the background what is the problem, right? As I said, it is, but you just portray that it is the, for example, one of the critical issue in that research. As I have given you the example of this, let's say, the chloride ion migration, these tests, right? So this is affecting, right, the overall methodology, right? It is affecting the basic concept, right? It is, so you are correcting the concept and lot of thing and a lot of validation. So if you have got the answer, you have identified that it is a conceptual weakness of the existing research, and this conceptual weakness is still in debate, and this conceptual weakness, to some extent, to me, it is sufficient for your research, right? And in that reason, your supervisor is the main person who can gauge, right? Or in RCS, this forum are to me, right? But in journal, you can, it will be your gut feeling that will give you an idea, right, that you have solved, right? You tried conceptually wrong, which was methodologically some weakness was there, and the limitation of empirical in the relationship, and you can relate the evolution of the problem, right? So if it was being debated last the problem, you got the answer. So it is, to me, it is very big things, right? So this is the answer to me. Is it okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. If I could ask you to stop sharing your screen, Professor, would that be okay before we move on to the next question?
Okay, okay.
All right. So the next question, Professor, is how can I design a research hypothesis? How can I design a research hypothesis?
Research hypothesis is basically your a good researcher is the one who can have the ability to foresee, right, to predict, fortune teller, right? So they look some circumstances. So hypothesis is your perceived solution, right? You can see, okay, and for making a hypothesis, you have to have a good theoretical. Just now, as I was telling you, that if at this voltage, so because you have to have the these ions are also mobilized at this, right? So hypothesis, you can say, if in the these are the main ions, right? So if I limit the this voltage or the heat, only the ion of my interest will mobilize. And how I can, so that can be, I can design. So this is the your methodology, right? So research question will come. So your hypothesis will be to uh, to minimum to accept the chloride ion, and that can be done. One of the hypotheses for reducing the testing voltage. So right, okay.
All right, thank you, Professor. For the last question, it says that, Professor, please explain more about conceptual, empirical, and methodology gap. I'll repeat the question. Please explain more about conceptual, empirical, and methodology gap.
Right, okay. So the difference between conceptual, right, methodological, there are, for example, relationships available, right, in your field, right? For example, second law, it is empirical. E is equal to mc square, right? So this empirical, F is equal to ma. So it was established, this relationship, based on now in your mind it came, a physics guy can say, still F is equal to ma. Is there anything, something, is there some energy loss? Do somebody can challenge it, right? If you can have in your mind, and then you can come up to your methodology, right? So because you with the physics, which is causing or transforming energy to other way, heat, right? So if this frictionless, so in all case LV, and then maybe you can come up to some a new empirical or some modification of empirical relationship, right? Which in many statistical research there are various models, right? So you are looking maybe on, say, when I went, right? This is the model which is the steel elongation model, right? Somebody, right? So you can look, so you are finding the limitation, how he has tested or how so many tested this model, and you can find the limits, and you say, okay, empirical model beyond the limits and whether it is applicable or not. So if you will test and you will change the coefficient, will get 0.57, right? If you will recall your RC design, right? So Whitney rectangular model 0.5, so 0.57 FCK is the empirical model which code has used, right? But you think you can challenge, and in BS code it was, so how it came 0.57, right, which is being used. So this I have told you the conceptual error, that conceptually it is not 100% applicable, as sometime or something gas will expand, right, with by increasing temperature, but somebody is showing it is contracting. Fine, not error, conceptual weakness. So in some generation, as just some testing, some procedures, so time, right? Just now, as I said, some of the indirect techniques, so they are making some concept, but with the advancement of knowledge, right? So the concept are being changing, like nanotechnology has changed some concept, right? And methodology, as I was telling you, right? You have like microstructure or porosity test, MIP. So methodologically everything is getting from FESEM, but you need number of this thing. So your method could be mercury intrusion porosimetry, because there are also every device there are limitation the size, because you more than this, so this method could not enter to the pore, right? So this is the methodology, experimentation, right? So there will be limitation. I'm not saying error. The limitation is the weakness, empirical. So there are, based on the earlier knowledge, some concept have been made, but the concept have kind of errors or weaknesses or gap, and if you can pick one or two, and you, so that will be your research contribution or not. Okay,
Thank you so much,
so
Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is no further questions right now. So we would like to just come to the end of our session. Thank you so much, Doctor. We believe that everybody has learned a lot from this session, all we need to know about research methodology course in UTP.